Do you think if Joe Hockey was still ambassador and playing golf with Trump that things might be different?
Look, I like Joe. I think he's terrific and he was a very good ambassador. But I think Kevin Rudd's a good ambassador. I think Kevin Rudd is the only bright spot in the whole Albanese national security setup. Rudd speaks, talks and writes more sense about the People's Republic of China than the rest of the government put together and multiplied 100 times. I don't think the problem is with Rudd. The problem is one of substance. The Albanese government won't make a hard choice about defence. So it says everything. It says we're in the most dangerous strategic circumstances since World War II. Everyone it appoints to give it advice about defence, Angus Houston, Peter Dean, Dennis Richardson, they all say you can't possibly do what you need to do under 3% of GDP budget. We are embarking on buying nuclear submarines, one of the most expensive things any nation can do. Any nation which has ever done this in the past has had to massively increase their defence budget. When Albanese came into office, defence was 2% of GDP. Today, it's 2% of GDP. Albanese, who has no interest in this matter beyond, reading his briefing notes, simply won't make a decision to take defence seriously. And I think psychologically he's like the Afghan government before the fall of Kabul. He just thinks the Americans will always be there and the Americans will always win. And if they're not there, there's nothing we can do in our own interests anyway. I think that's a terrible view for an Australian government to have. But that's you've got to kind of reverse engineer to work out the Albanese government's view on defence, because what it's doing, its actions don't match to its rhetoric, and it is a deep
Is it
disagreement
philosophical
about policy.
or practical? That the sticking point about defence? Is it about, whether we want to deter, whether we want regional stability or homeland defence, or is it more practical? Like, do we have enough supply? Is it sustainable? Do we have, enough personnel?
Well, I think it's both, Leigh. I mean, so it is true that no country spends its money on defence more inefficiently than we do. And an argument from Treasury types is always, look what a mess defence makes of all its spending. Why would you give it any more money? But that reflects very poor political leadership. I mean, we were going to choose a mature frigate design, and instead we chose the Hunter frigates, which were still on the drawing board. We chose the Japanese subs, or we made an in-principle decision, then we changed our mind and chose the French subs, then we changed our mind and chose nuclear subs. So we are very bad at defence, and no government has reformed it properly. But the big practical problem is they just don't want to spend the money. I mean, we were going to have a fourth squadron of F-35s. We don't have sustainment for our ships and planes. We were going to have supply ships for our Navy so the Navy could operate a long way away. We were going to upgrade the Hunter frigates. The government decided not to do that. We're going to put Tomahawks on the Collins. The government decided not to do that. This is all just because it won't spend money. But there is also a philosophical dimension, I think, at a couple of levels. One is Penny Wong is a dominant figure in the government, and she is greatly influenced by the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, which has a multilateralist, kumbaya, negotiate everything kind of approach, not a hard-headed approach to defence. Richard Marles has apparently no influence in the Expenditure Review Committee at all, and is a government, as I say, dominated by ministers from the left. I don't think they're wicked ideologues or anything, but they simply, national security is not their thing. It's like a minister from the right asking him to do an anti-poverty program. It's just not his thing. And Albanese and Wong and the other left-wing ministers who dominate the government, they've never given defence a serious thought in their lives, and they're not willing to prioritise it now. And then on top of all that, they just look at China and say it's too big anyway. If it has a blue with us, we'll never win, which is a terrible defeatist. You look at what Israel can do, you look at what Ukraine can do, and the best way to stop a blue is to have credible deterrence. We don't have any credible deterrence now at all. We're 100% reliant on the United States at a time when our influence in the United States has never been weaker.
Thank you so much. Great talking to you as always.